Alright, so let's start this review off with the story. In the beginning, you have two huge godlike figures fighting. These two are known as the Bionis and the Mechanis. They both mortally wound each other, and it appears both have been killed. Many years later, humans start to populate and live on the Bionis. But the humans aren't safe on the Bionis. No, no, no. They are in constant war with the machine-like Mechons, which came from the other godlike figure, the Mechanis. Are you following me so far? Now, one soldier named Dunban and his magical sword named the Monado, which is the only thing that can actually kill the Mechons, seemingly end them once and for all. He kills every single one of the Mechons, seemingly. A year passes and you are introduced to the main character named Shulk, who is a scientist working on uncovering the Monado's secrets. After gathering with his friends Ryan and Fiora, he notices that the Mechons are attacking his village. Soon after the attack, Shulk decides to go out with his companions and find out why the Mechons are back. Damn, that was a lot to talk about, and I talked about it all in less than a minute. Wow, look at that. I'm pretty good at telling stories. I mean, I usually sum it up in like 2 sentences, but this one was like 5, so wow, go me. Anyway, the story is actually quite good in the game, which is unusual for me to say for a JRPG. There are plenty of likable characters and well-written dialogue, which again is very unusual for me to say for a JRPG. There's a lot of genuine emotion here as well, which really makes me like the characters and what they go through even more. Overall, the story is actually very well told and filled with really, I would even say, lovable characters. I actually really enjoyed this story, which again is very, very unusual for me with JRPGs. So anyway, let's go on to the sound. Now the sound. JRPGs like this usually have horrible and unintentionally hilarious voice acting. There are very few exceptions to what seems like a rule now for the genre. Luckily, this is one of those few exceptions. This game actually is voiced entirely by a British cast, and that is a very welcome change because I played a few JRPGs and pretty much all of them all have an American voice cast, and they're all usually horrible voice actors. All the main characters, including the side characters, are all voiced very well by their voice actors. There is the occasional bad voice actor here and there, but for the most part, everyone does a good job. Sound design is also good in the game, with everything sounding like it's supposed to, even though I feel sometimes it gets a little too repetitive during the battles. Now, the soundtrack for the game sounds epic and at times soothing when you're just traveling along, fighting nothing, and just listening. It actually sounds really calming and peaceful. Overall, the sound does a great job, which is, again, pretty surprising for a JRPG. Now, before anybody says something, it is just good sound overall for a video game, not just for a JRPG, so don't complain, okay? Anyway, let's go on to the graphics. Now, the graphics. Let me say this straight up. Graphically, the game looks good, but for a Wii game, which is usually incapable of producing very good graphics, it looks fantastic. The world is very lush, expansive, and lively, and uses its color palette perfectly. The character models are very well animated and modeled, and has a very cool anime style to it, which for some odd reason, I like it in this game. Maybe it's because I like the characters, I don't know. The special effects for some of the moves, like the magic and just some of the abilities you can use, are really nice, but there are the obvious Wii problems like low-res textures, jaggy models, and a lot of blurriness. Even with these problems, I think it is definitely one of the best looking Wii games of all time, and definitely holds its own. So there you go, there's the graphics. Let's go on to the gameplay. Now the gameplay for Xenoblade Chronicles. This is not your typical hack and slash or turn-based strategy RPG. The gameplay takes a very refreshingly new approach to your typical RPG. The combat is a mixture of real-time action with some turn-based thrown in. While you are roaming through the huge open world that the game provides you, you will encounter many enemies like the main villains, the mechanical mechons, or just some of the wildlife that lives on the Bionis. When you enter into a battle, besides just mashing buttons to attack your enemy like press A and you win, you instead have a number of different attacks that you can pull off. You then pick any of the moves that you want to use and then press A to perform them, and then your character will perform them themselves automatically. While you are doing this, you are free to move around the environment and try to get the best vantage point that you can. It's such a unique and fun way to play an RPG and almost never really gets old. It reminded me a lot of how Knights of the Old Republic, one of my favorite games of all time, played. One really cool feature is the abilities of the Monado itself. You know, that really badass sword that I talked about in the beginning and that's on the cover art of the game? Well, you can actually use that, and not only can it kill the unkillable mechons, but you can also see into the future. Sometimes in battles, the game will slow down and show you how one of your allies or you will die. You can then change this fate by attacking the one who will be performing the final blow. It's a really cool idea that is executed very well in the game. Now, like I said, you do have allies in the game, and throughout the story you will be able to pick up many different allies that will aid you in battle. You can have up to 2 other allies help you out during combat. A lot of these battles can get challenging, so it requires you to work as a team and think of good strategies to use. By winning battles, you are rewarded with XP, which levels your characters up, and AP, which lets you upgrade your different moves that you can perform during combat. You can also learn new moves to perform, but these are much harder to come by than just leveling up. The world is very huge and very open for you to explore. Problem is, there are plenty of places that if you explore, then you will most likely get killed instantly because of the high level creatures that roam around. But you can also still just visit many of the towns and villages and even do some side missions, which there are plenty of in the game. And when I say plenty of, I mean hundreds and hundreds of side quests. Sadly though, most of these side quests are generic, like kill this amount of enemies or collect this flower, but still, it's really cool to have all that content. Xenoblade Chronicles is a very expansive game with a huge amount of content for its $50 price tag. The game can last you for a very long time if you feel like tackling the many side missions that the game throws at you. Overall, it is a great JRPG, which I usually never say, like I said earlier, many times I've said, with very likable characters, a fantastic combat system, and a huge entertaining world to explore. I easily recommend Xenoblade Chronicles for anyone that loves a good time and needs something new for their Wii. So anyway, there is my review. I hope you enjoyed it. Xenoblade Chronicles is definitely worth your time. It's a great game. Thank God they brought this to America because it is definitely worth your time. So anyway, there you go. There's my review. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you and goodbye.